at the Madras International Circuit for a 2-day track day with RACR. Today is the second day. It's been phenomenal for multiple reasons. A big reason has been this motorcycle, the Ducati Panigale V2 S. It's the first time I'm riding it and I'm really happy with this motorcycle. The other reason is that the weather gods have been kind to us today. Yesterday was 42, 43 degrees, burning hot, hellish humidity. Today was only 38 or 39. We had some cloud cover and it was actually quite lovely in comparison. Anyway, let's talk about this motorcycle. As you probably know, it's been out for a while now overseas. It's a big change to the old V2S in many ways. Some of the ways I'm a little unhappy about, and many of the ways I really appreciate what Ducati has done. Everything on this motorcycle is new. It's an entirely new platform, including a new monocoque frame, brand new V2 engine, which is now going into multiple motorcycles, and it makes a really nice fit in this bike. There's also the fact that there's been a big weight savings here. The old Panigale V2 was the smaller Panigale. It made about 155 horsepower, whereas the V4s were well above 210. But that bike weighed as much as the V4. In fact, maybe even 1 or 2 kilos more than the V4. It also looked exactly like the V4. This time around, they're doing things differently. This bike has its own design and it weighs a whole lot less. When you calculate the curb weight with the fuel tank 90% full, it is 187 kilos, and for a bike like this, that is really light. It's way lighter than competition like the ZX6R, and that is one of the highlights of this motorcycle. Before we get to the riding aspect, I do want to talk about the way it looks. It is a pretty motorcycle, no doubt. It's really nice looking, but it's lost some of that wow factor, that absolute sexiness of the previous V2, and that is a little bit sad to me. I think that is because A, the bike is a little slimmer, but even the tail is not as exaggerated and as wild as it used to be. The headlamps look a little sleeker, the tank is a little smaller. Now, while I do feel that this is not as pretty as the old Panigale V2, and that is a bit sad, there are still some very nice looking details on the motorcycle to take in, like that mounting system for the side slung shock, or this swing arm itself. It's a really pretty thing to look at. The switchgear is also the latest generation Ducati switchgear. It's just a direction pad out there, which is very easy to use. Although this particular motorcycle, something has gone wrong with the switches. They've gotten loose. They're still functional, but they're loose. I've never seen this before, so I'm not sure if this is a known issue with this bike. And we must also remember that this is a dealer test ride bike. Lots of people have used it, and some of them have probably abused it, which is something to keep in mind. But overall fit and finish levels are typically Ducati, which is really quite good. So if you are buying a Ducati primarily for the way it looks, this may not float your boat, but there are many other reasons why it will. One of those reasons, at least for me, is the engine. On paper, this is a downgrade. The old Super Quattro engine made 155 horsepower. This one is just 120. But believe me, in person, on the move, this is just a lovely engine. There is so much torque. It's really responsive right from 3000, 4000 RPM onwards, but it also manages to rev really quickly. You can just blip the throttle and watch that digital needle flick up and down 6,000, 7,000 RPM. And it's a high revving engine for a twin cylinder. It makes peak power 10,750 RPM and it will rev all the way up to nearly 12,000 RPM before you hit the limiter. In my experience with it today, I found no reason to go that high. In fact, it does start to build some vibrations in the bar above 9,500 RPM. Peak torque comes in at about 9,000 RPM, and I don't think I was revving it much more than 10. But the rate of progress was really very quick, and you probably have noticed that this motorcycle is wearing some very tasty aftermarket exhausts. That is an accessory Terminioni exhaust system. Not a full system, but there is a mid pipe that has taken out the catalytic converter. It's not road legal and it does sound awesome. I must give you a taste of what that's like. Good old Ducati Thunder. It's loud, it's awesome, but it's not stupidly loud. It is way too loud for the street, but on track was just lovely. They've also updated the Quickshifter to their new DQS system, which takes away that traditional sensor system. Works phenomenally. I didn't have a single issue with it today. And that Quickshifter creates some really good sounds, especially on the auto blipper when you're just dropping 2 gears into a slow corner. Ooh, it really sounds very good. That's still not the reason why I enjoyed this bike so much today. The main thing for me is A, how light it is, but funny enough, it actually felt really heavy to me at the start of the day, and that's because yesterday I was riding an extremely special bike. It's a national championship winning pro stock Yamaha R3 that weighs just 132 kilos and is completely mind-bending to ride. That's a separate video, you should go watch it. But that was how my day started. But by the second and third session, I could appreciate that for the kind of power this bike has and the kind of chassis stability and the way it feels like a big bike, the weight of it is really your friend. The second thing, and I think I appreciated this even more, is the riding position. Ducati has done something unusual here. They've made this bike quite comfortable. These bars are really quite high up and wide for a bike like this, and I enjoy that. It gives you lots of leverage, lots of comfort as well, and the foot peg position unusually is not extreme either. This is, for a bike like this and just how fast and capable this bike is on track, luxury comfort. Now, a super fast racer, like I was talking to Rajni Krishnan today about his experience with this motorcycle, at that level, they do want slightly lower bars because it gives them more control over the front end. This puts a little bit too much leverage at really very high track pace. But for me today, and I was going faster around this circuit than I have ever gone before, I enjoyed the comfort and the ease it gave me because I am not extremely fit. To ride a fast bike, truly fast on the track, you need lots of skill and lots of fitness. On this topic, I'd also like to add that I never had any clearance issues with these foot pegs, but again, if you're riding at national champion level pace around the racetrack, you may want slightly higher pegs, and you can do aftermarket pegs if that's your need. But for 99.5% of riders, this setup will be comfortable, but also very capable. Now, I would have loved to have taken this bike out onto the street as well and tell you what that's like, but there are no number plates, although it is a familiar engine, so I can tell you it does not like very low revs. It has a fairly heavy clutch and it throws off quite a bit of heat in other Ducati models that we have experienced this in. So perhaps not the easiest of motorcycles to ride on the street, but those ergonomics will help. On track though, this bike just kept encouraging me to try to push my limits a little bit more, try and find a better lap time. And that's with the fact that it's on not very track-oriented tires. There is a Rosso Corsa up front, which is not standard, but it has the Rosso 4 at the back, which is standard. Early in the morning on a cold tire first session out, I did feel it step out. Ducati electronics are excellent. Traction control, just keep it on a low level 2 and it looks after you. But once I got heat into the tires, they performed really well at the pace I was riding at. Braking also really very good. Ducati consistently does fantastic brakes. These are not the latest high pure calipers, and just on paper, that's a complaint I have with these middleweight Ducatis. If you're charging me so much money, give me the best equipment. That is still an M50, which is still a super brake. No issues with the performance whatsoever. It's just a spec sheet thing that would have been nice considering how much you're paying. Suspension wise, this is the V2 S model, which means that you get Ohlins front and rear fully adjustable. And at the start of the day, I did find the bike feeling a little unfriendly because it was quite soft and I was used to a very small and light bike, so this was behaving really differently. It wasn't absorbing the bumps as well as I'd have liked. It felt a little wallowy at the rear, but with some help from Rajni and the Ducati technicians, we dialed in some preload at the front, we firmed up the damping, especially at the rear, and that made a very good improvement. Through the day, I didn't feel the need to make any more changes, apart from the fact that I was running through the fork travel. You can see there's a little zip tie down there that tells you that I was using almost all the fork travel. So we just added a little preload at the front to give a little more support, and the bike behaved really well. Now, one of the reasons I love riding these sort of motorcycles is because you know there is an electronics net looking after you in case you do something stupid. After a few sessions in the day, you're tired, your brain is not working as well, it's hot, it's humid, and you can make a mistake. Today, for example, I shifted up while I moved my body weight a little aggressively and I got a massive tank slap on the front and I thought, oh boy, this is going to go bad, but The bike sorted itself out. We kept going in a straight line and I just could attack the next corner. So that was nice, but it's also good to know that you have good electronics, especially when you're not on a track tire. So I wasn't too worried about cracking open the throttle coming out of corners, knowing that the traction control was there in case I wasn't quick enough to save a rear slide. Then you've got the typical Ducati wheelie control, engine brake control. It's the usual Ducati package, and these are some of the best electronics in the business. So now let's try and make an overall summation of this motorcycle and what it represents. Now, Ducati motorcycles over the last 5-6 years have gone from being very premium to ultra premium, and the prices have just gone really high. So don't get your hopes up by the VFM sticker on the motorcycle. That's actually the name of the Bengaluru dealer that this bike came from. This is actually a really expensive bike, and the V2 S that we have here is a little over 21 lakh rupees ex-showroom. When you compare that to a ZX6R, it's a world of difference. I do believe that the 6R will probably be more capable on track in the hands of a more experienced rider, but for less experienced riders, this is the way you want to go if you can afford it. There's also the aspect of Ducati ownership that I've noticed over the past couple of years, that they really look after their customers. Every track day has Ducati presence from the local dealer. They're out looking after the bikes, making sure that if you need any spares, it's available. If you need any setup help, it's available. And that, as a customer of a premium motorcycle, is a really invaluable feeling. They do a better job than any premium motorcycle manufacturer in the country in terms of making their track customers feel really good about themselves. So my thoughts on this motorcycle are that if you're someone who's looking at getting into track day riding and you can afford it, I would absolutely say buy this over a V4. The temptation is to buy the bike that looks awesome on paper, has the crazy power numbers, and you can tell everyone that I own a state-of-the-art superbike. But those things are tough to ride, they're physical to ride, and they generally don't make you feel good as a rider unless you're very, very skilled. To date, I have ridden the Panigale many times over the years, but I've never gotten off that bike feeling wow about myself. I've always felt like the bike is up here and I'm here and I have so much work to do, and it's sort of demoralizing in a way. You also are full of awe and respect for the motorcycle, but you don't really feel great about yourself. And it's not just the Panigale, it's a lot of these thousands. I've noticed this at track days over the years. People buy the 1000 and then they sort of struggle out on track. If you're interested in getting into track riding with a proper sports bike, absolutely go for this over a V4. Figure it out, and if you are one of those few people who are genuinely fast, well then go for a V4 after that, go for 1000 after that. But this is a phenomenal starting point as someone who wants to hit the track on a proper sports bike and actually wants to have fun with it as well. So to sum up, I cannot tell you honestly that this bike is value for money, especially when you consider that a ZX6R is so much more affordable and it does a similar sort of job. But I can tell you that if you can afford this motorcycle, it'll probably make you very happy about the money that you've spent.